Hi everyone. I swear this is the last time I'm going to take the stage. Other than the 7 consecutive lightning talks I have later. Thank you for that one person. Okay, so I'm going to talk about excess a bit. Who here knows what excess is? Has heard about it? Who here likes excess? Okay. Okay, notice the core dev there in the corner did not raise his hand. Okay, so excess, basically. Right? So the thing with excess, let me try and kind of describe what excess is, okay? Excess is a glue layer between Perl and C or C++, okay? It has sections, macros, and functions. It requires knowledge. You need to know C, you need to know the Perl API, you need to know Excess API, and you need to know type maps. It is written by our very best, or at least what we have. Kidding. And these are some words that people usually associate with excess, which is complex, difficult, strenuous, laborious, painful, formidable. This is how I got that list. You can get your own at Thesaurus. And oftentimes people say that excess is the impediment that we have to modern Perl. We cannot have modern Perl with excess, and this is what we have to fix. And the thing is, what if I told you that, honestly, anyone can do excess? It's not that difficult. It is not strenuous, usually. Excess is basically, as far as I can tell, it's misunderstood. You do not need to be an expert. You can just have basic Perl API knowledge. It is fine. And the basic API is actually simple. Excess is not too difficult to write. It has lots of options. They're all documented. Except those that aren't documented. Except that the official tutorial sucks. And I don't just mean sucks. I mean sucks. Like, it really fucking sucks. It is horrible. It is terrible. I can give like a whole talk on how much it sucks, but there is not enough time in the German Perl workshop, apparently, for you to be able to give a talk. It will take like 3 days, 7 days, 12 days. Your mom, yes. Right. And except that there's no better or any other full tutorial that I could find. Now, there are a few other tutorials, but none of them I really felt like they help understand this. So I figured, well, you know what, I could write my own. Because I'm very good at writing, sure, why not? Except that I'm not, but why not? And the idea was I could just try to learn excess and write what I'm learning in a way that I understand it, and because I think that I'm a very low common denominator in my knowledge of things, that if I understand it, you could understand it. Any one of you. So I started with, thanks to Stefan Mueller, I started with something called Excess Fun. It's basically a tutorial. The idea is to make excess fun in a way that it is, you know, there aren't any balloons there or ponies, but it is fun to write it. And you get a really good sense of accomplishment when you do this, and a sense of, I finally understand this thing that everyone is so terrified of. It starts really easy. It progresses very slowly, which is something that I needed. You know, you have the tutorials. They go like, all right, you have this function. It has 3 lines. Here's the explanation. Next step, 700 lines of code. So it doesn't do that. It is split to chapters, kind of like a book. And each chapter has a small task that you go through the entire chapter doing. So when you finish the chapter, you know that task, you just learned a ton of things, and you understand every single character that went on in there. Hopefully. And there's a lot of explanations for beginners. So there's some incantations in Excess where it's just copy-paste this line, but you don't know what it does, you don't know how it works. And the idea is to have a lot of explanations for people who don't really know necessarily how Perl sees things, and it helps explain that too, which is something that I found very valuable that does not exist in a lot of tutorials that the person who writes them assumes that, well, you know Perl because you're into Access, so you probably know Perl well enough that you can just ignore a ton of shit that you have no idea about. One thing that this has that the tutorial does not have is the examples work. I cannot tell you how valuable this single point is. So let's take a look at some features of XSFun, the tutorial. First of all, it's already on GitHub. You can find it, you can clone it, you can submit pull requests. I've already gotten pull requests from core devs. It's a lot of fun, it's great, it's very motivating. And people who are not core devs just looked at it and were like, you know what, actually this is a better explanation. And they offered a pull request and we revised it, and it's fantastic. So we're basically learning together and writing it together. It's not just me anymore, which is great because I suck. So it's fantastic that we're doing it together. There are already a few chapters, not that many. It's a work in progress, but there are already a few chapters. I cover functions in Access and in C. I cover how to write a constructor and a few simple methods. That's what we have so far. There are a few things still missing, still work in progress, complicated methods, converting objects using type maps, which I do know, but I haven't written yet. Some advanced Access stuff, which is a very big topic, so that needs to be broken down. And before I actually show you some of it, I'm going to just give you a quick once-over on the quick glossary so we could actually understand every piece of code that I'm going to show you. Perl has something called an SV, which is a scalar value. It holds a value to a scalar. Now, there can be different values. There's IV for integer values. When you do a my_i, -30, 400, whatever, this is stored in an IV, which is an SV. There's a UV, which is an unsigned integer value, right? There's NV, which is a double value. There's PV, which is a string value. When you have a string, it saves a PV. And you can have an SV, which is just an SV. It has another scalar value. There is an AV, which is an array value. So if you have an array, my array, you just created an AV. An HV for a hash value, very simple. And an RV for a reference value. This is all you need to know to read the code that I'm going to show you. OK? Is everyone ready? 3 people. I guess. All right, examples. Let's start. So this is XSFun.pm. There's a use strict and warnings, because if you're not using strict and warnings, get the fuck out. There's exporter. We're using XS loader, and what XS loader is going to do is actually find the XS piece that relates to this and compile it in and make it accessible for us. We're using exporter here to provide export tags for a function that we have yet to write, and export OK for this function. So we run XS loader load. We tell it to run to load XSFun using this version, kind of like how we use modules. This is XSFun.access. There's a few includes here that you basically need. This for portability, the X subroutines, the Perl core, and so on. Just copy paste. There's a definition here for a module and a package, because you can have multiples. And here is just a very simple function. Okay? It's stupid simple. I wrote it. That's how I know. There's a double here as a return value. The name of the function is addNumbers. It takes 2 doubles. This piece is access that says, here's the code for the function. Okay? And it says that we're setting ret value to the addition of those. And we have an XS piece that says output, which is what I'm actually going to return from this function, which is the ret val that we defined here. The return value that we set is what's going to get output back to the user. Here is a version that actually uses what we learned about the Perl internals. This says, well, a double is actually an SV, right? It's a scalar value. When we have a variable in Perl which represents a double value, it will be an SV. So we can say that we're not going to return a double. We're just going to return an SV. And XS is totally fine with that. And then we say, well, because we're getting 2 doubles, we can just say, well, we're getting 2 SVs, basically. And what we have here is code that creates a const double sum. And what we use is a function called svnv that says, this is an SV of an NV, right, a double. Get me that value from the SV pointer that we have. We do the same with B. We just add them together to a sum. And what we do is, to return an SV, we take that sum, which is a double, and we call new svnv, basically saying, please create a new SV, because I want to return one, and create it from a double, from an NV. Create an NV SV, okay? A double SV. Use sum for it. The output is the ret val, just like before. That's it. It's not that complicated. Some more stuff. I'm using in the tutorial a library called ChromePrint because, I don't know, I found it looks simple enough. And what we have is the code section here. And I created a const char pointer function, or a function to a const char pointer. And what I have is a code that basically calls ChromePrint get version. That's from this library. I didn't write any of that. And I return that code value. Now I have access that has a function called get version. I get the version from the C library. I just glued these together. And in version.t, which is just a test that I wrote, and the tutorial has tests. And it shows how the tests work. There's a bug I found. I show it in the test. It's really nice. So I use XSFun with a tag all to get the version. Let me just track a bit. If you recall this part, saying if you take the all tag, I'm going to give you get version. We haven't written the get version on the Perl side, but we have on the access side. Here it is. And when you get the all tag, you now have get version from the access part. It will call get version. It will return it. And I can check using is. Very simple. Here's how it looks when you run it. So what is ChromePrint? ChromePrint is a library that provides fingerprints for audio. Honestly, I have no idea how it works. So I created audio ChromePrint. It's not on CPAN because the tutorial is not done. When the tutorial is done, we could upload it to CPAN. It's basically an interface to that library. Here's audio ChromePrint.pm. Package definition, strict warnings, access loader, version, and access loader load audio ChromePrint version. That's it. It's going to load an access file that has the definition for audio ChromePrint. Let's take a look at that access file. Here's ChromePrint.access. It will load this, and it sees that it's relevant because it has the module definition and the package definition. Here's some more code in ChromePrint.access, a bit lower in the file, right after this part. We define the version. All right, first of all, it was get version. Now it's version. Because what you want to do is add state. Because ChromePrint has state. It's objects. So we can do objects too. So what I'm doing here is it's the same thing. Instead of get version, I call it version. Because I kind of think that it's more suitable to see it as an attribute rather than a function get version. You can totally disagree and open a pull request on GitHub. And what it gets is an SV self, just like we do in Perl, right? Your invocant is the first parameter. When you do self, arrow, something, whatever comes before the arrow, the invocant is the first parameter to go in. Self. And I can just say, well, it's an SV, right? It's a scalar value. And I get this. And the return value is just ChromePrint get version. Stupid simple. What I want to show you is how to write a constructor in Access. If we take a look at Perl, we have new, sub, array ref, hash ref, shift. It could be an array ref. Or if I put it in a bit more verbose manner, we have a class that we got as the invocant. We could use this instead. We create a hash. We create a reference to that hash. We bless that and return it. OK? So once we have this in front of us, let's take a look at how it would look in Access. It would look pretty much the same, surprisingly and delightfully. So we have an SV, we return an SV from this, which basically SV says, look, I'm returning a scalar value. I don't really know what it is, and I don't really care. It's the general type, a scalar value. And it's called new. We receive a string here, which is class. This is the same line. And we have a code block. We create a new hash using new HV that says create a new hash value. And we stored it into a hash variable, which is a pointer to HV, a type for hash value. We then create a reference to that hash. We're using, it's a bit tricky, new RV no inc. I'll explain it in a second. It creates a new reference value. And we send the hash. Now, here's the interesting part if you don't know C. And I do not expect you to know C. HV is the type for hash. If you send it to new RV, new RV is going to complain and say, hey, I'm not receiving HV. I'm only receiving SVs. The reason is that we want new RV to accept HVs, AVs, IVs, NVs. We want to be able to get any type of SV. So new RV no inc accepts an SV. Because HV is an SV type, we can actually just cast it and say, hey, treat this as if it's an SV. And this is what this does. It's called casting. And we get back an SV for self, because an RV is an SV. The no inc here basically says, you already have a reference here. If you do new RV, you're going to get another reference. That's 2. That's a memory leak. So no inc says, create a reference, but don't increment the counter. This is actually explained much more elaborately in the tutorial with a test that shows you the memory leak, the fix, and the test showing you that it's fixed. Very nice. And then we just bless it. So we call SV bless, basically saying bless this SV. And here's the SV. And GV stash PV basically gets the slot that it needs for the class. And this is the default parameter that it needs. Return the value. So the conclusions are these. Let me just ask, okay, where is this? There we go. So before I continue, how difficult was this? Honestly, was this very difficult? I'm getting nods. Great, fantastic. So let's look at the conclusion. XS is not that complicated. XS can be fun. I can tell you that after I wrote this and ran it, holy shit, I was so happy. It was fantastic. And you can do it. Everyone can do it, which is something we like. And that's about it. That is that simple. Here are some homework. You can go to GitHub, my user and the XS Fun tutorial. You can look at it. You can submit pull requests. You can correct me, okay? Which is I'm used to that. You can take a look at ProlGuts, the Prol API, and ProlXS, which are all great documents to help you understand this. And I actually use the Prol API and ProlXS as a reference, and ProlGuts as a nice explanation of how SVs work in Prol and how it actually sees the internals, which is really, really good. That is it. Does anyone have any questions? Damn. Wow. I don't know if it's a good thing. Yes?
What was an NV?
NV, it's a double.
Okay.
Strictly, it's not always, but lies you tell to children.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it.
But the only Zeph from Pupal's Pearl with it, anything else?
Well, a lot of things in Perl are not always, but almost always, or usually, and that's totally fine because that's where we go. It's kind of like when
Wednesdays.
Yeah, when you reach the point where it's not that anymore, you already know, and it's okay. So until you reach that point, you don't have to actually care about it. By the time you reach the point, you will already know about it. Does anyone have any other questions? All right, great. Go there, clone it, submit comments, submit patches, maybe help rephrase some of the things that I said or wrote, and let's kind of build like a proper XS tutorial that is not stupid, that makes sense, that is easy and fun, and improve our skills and do really cool stuff with other libraries. That's it. Thank you very much.